Hey, what's up, guys? Jake Steele, ironandsteel.com. This is podcast episode number 22. And thank you very much for being here. As always, it is Halloween today. So we're doing something a little bit different. Number one, I recorded this early and released it a day early so that it could come out on Monday rather than Tuesday in time for Halloween. And on that same theme, the story that I'm going to read you this week, number one, it's not car related, like at all. So, anybody that knows me knows that I'm kind of a weird fucker, and outside of car stuff, my interests are, sort of anything unsolved or mysterious. So like ghosts and UFOs and, unsolved crime and all that sort of basic white dude bullshit. I do have a pretty big interest in that. So over the years, coincidentally, I've actually had a few strange things happen to me. And one of the strangest things occurred when I was in my late teens, and it was very odd. And so that's the story I'm going to read you today. Again, it's not car related, but it is Halloween related, and so I figured it would be a fitting story for this week. So that's what we're going to do. I actually wrote this story a couple of years ago. This is something that's kind of haunted me for my whole life since it occurred, and I never really told anybody about it for a long time, years and years and years. And then a few years ago, it kind of popped back into my brain, and I wrote it down. And I think I put it on my website a couple of years ago on Halloween. And I don't know, for some reason I got self-conscious about it, took it back down. But yesterday I put the article back up. So, I'll read it to you today. But if you want to go back and revisit it, you're welcome to. It's ironandsteel.com. And on that subject, hey, while you're there, scroll to the bottom of the page, click the button that says subscribe, and punch in your email. I'm going to send you an email, maybe 2 a week. It's just to let you know when there's fresh content. So, of course, we do this weekly podcast, and then most usually there's an article on the site, a new article once a week. And in some cases, it's maybe one every 2 weeks or whatever if I'm being lazy. But in any case, there is quite a bit going on in the world of ironandsteel.com. So click the subscribe button. You can be kept up to date on all that good stuff. So anyway, I guess I'll just jump right into it. Thanks again for being here. Happy Halloween. I don't know what to tell you about this story other than you can interpret it however you want. The only thing I can tell you is what I'm about to tell you is 100% true. So, interpret it how you wish. By the time I was 18, I had already been moved out of my parents' place for quite a while. I had finished high school a year early and went straight to work. I got a place with some friends and basically just sort of partied like an idiot, making room in between for work. Just enough work that I could afford to keep having a good time and tinker on my cars. It was every teenager's dream. Total freedom. Everything was going just as planned for a while. Until one night, I had this really messed up dream. It wasn't just the content of the dream that was disturbing. It was also that it seemed so real. More so than anything I had ever experienced. And it went just like this. A woman is walking down a neighborhood street. It's nighttime. I can make out most of her features, but not all, since it's so dark outside. She's blonde, in her 20s, she's thin, She's wearing jeans and a black jacket. She's minding her own business and sort of seems to be in a hurry to get to wherever she's headed to. As she crosses the street at an intersection, two men run out of the shadows and grab her. One man covers her mouth and starts dragging her to a waiting van. The other man runs slightly ahead and opens the back doors of the van, and they force her in. One gets in the back with her. The other runs to the front, jumps in, and they speed away. And in the dream, I'm watching it like it were a movie. Sometimes I'm seeing it from a distance. Sometimes I'm in the van with her. I never had the sense that I was actually physically there or could do anything about what was happening. Just that I was somehow watching this unfold and helpless to change it. They drive for what seems to be a really short distance, maybe only a few blocks. And they pull into a tiny gravel alley with a small house on one side of it. It's a white bungalow-style house, slightly run down, with a short picket fence around the yard. Some of the pickets are missing, and the yard is cluttered. They pull into the alley. The driver gets out, runs to the back, and opens the door. The two men pull the woman out of the back and attempt to muffle her screams. Eventually, they get her out. One man starts forcing her in the direction of the house, and the other slams the back doors of the van shut. And as he does, the second door, which has the license plate on it, closes. And the dream comes to an abrupt end right at that point, with the license plate being the last thing that I see. I wake up sweaty, disturbed, and with that image of the license plate etched into my brain. The next day, I tried my hardest to shrug it off. But, unlike any dream I had ever had, this one stuck with me. I remember being at work the next day and being totally preoccupied thinking about the dream. It just seemed so real. It really bothered me. I had no clue that it was about to get much worse. So that night, I did the typical stuff. I drank beer, listened to music, partied with my roommates. I was in bad need of something to keep my mind off this stupid dream that had bothered me all day. And this seemed to be the perfect solution. By about 1 a.m, I was ready to get some sleep. I headed to bed, sufficiently drunk enough to have forgotten all about it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to forget for very long. That night, I had the exact same dream. Same girl, same street, same van, same abduction, and same license plate. It ended again the way it had the night before. The door of the van shutting, and that plate burned into my brain. This continued the next night. Same dream, same girl, same ending. And the next night. The one after that. The one after that. And the one after that. It went on for more than a month. Every night, the same thing. It had gotten to the point where it was affecting my daily life. I became sort of swallowed up by this dream. I would think about it all day, wandering around like a zombie, totally disconnected and completely consumed by it. I dreaded falling asleep. Over and over and over, the same fucking dream. Night after night, waking up sweating and terrified with that fucking license plate burned into my brain. Then, one night, out of the blue, it just stopped. It was just over. Abruptly. I remember the first morning waking up feeling relieved, but confused and somehow betrayed at the same time. I had gotten so accustomed to this nightly ritual that when it didn't happen, it was a very odd feeling. Overall, though, I was more than happy to have not had the dream. The next night, the same thing. No dream. In time, I began to forget all about the whole thing. I was very happy to put it behind me. But for a long time, I did have a lingering sense of curiosity as to what it all meant, if anything. Fast forward a few years. I don't recall exactly how old I was, but I suspect I had probably just turned 21. As on this particular day, I was at my parents' house for dinner, and I do remember drinking a beer and not being worried that my mom might say something about it. It was at least 3 or 4 years since I had last had that dream. I had completely forgotten about it. Literally, it hadn't crossed my mind in years. My parents are those type of people that eat dinner on the couch in front of the TV, which is usually on the news or some sort of mindless background noise. So I'm sitting there, having dinner, watching the news, but not really paying much attention. Until the news anchor says something like, "Tonight, we have new information in a case that we first brought to you several years ago." It seemed it was an update in a cold case that involved the disappearance of a young girl. For some reason, this caught my attention, and as I watched, I began to get an odd feeling. As they gave the details about the case, they played footage of what was apparently a crime scene having to do with this girl's disappearance. It was all taped off, police cars all around it, sort of a chaotic scene. They cut away from that to show a photo of a woman in her 20s with blonde hair. As they showed that picture and described the details of the case, my ears started to ring. I still hadn't quite put it together at that second, but it was all coming back to me in a flood. I started to sweat and feel nauseous. I almost felt like I was going to pass out. It was a very strange feeling. And then, as they panned back to the crime scene footage, it hit me like a punch to the face. There, on the screen, was the house from my dream. Picket fence falling down, cluttered yard, a gravel alley next to it, and in the alley was the van. On the back door, the license plate that I had woken up to so many times. I literally ran to the bathroom and threw up. So after this happened, I started researching this case. I looked up the girl and tried to learn everything I could about her. Who she was, and what connection I could possibly have had to her and to her disappearance. The more I dug, the more confused I became. I could find absolutely no reason why I should know even a single thing about this girl, let alone to have apparently witnessed her abduction. If the dream had consumed me initially, the few months after the update fully engulfed me. But the end result was more confusing than the event itself. Zero connection, and no reason that I could find that any of this should have ever happened at all. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before, and thankfully, nothing like it has happened since. It's been more than 20 years now. Do I still remember her name? And do I still remember that license plate? I do. Am I going to start Googling? Not a chance. Okay, there you have it. The Dream. Again, ironandsteel.com is the website. For now, that story is there if you want to revisit it, read it for yourself. There's no photos or anything on there. It's just a story. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Again, not car related, of course, but I thought it was Halloween related. I don't know what to say about that occurrence, other than exactly what I just told you is just how it went down. So, definitely one of the strangest things that's ever happened to me. And again, I'm pretty interested in things like that. And so, maybe sometimes I go looking for it, even being interested in it and seeking it out. I've never had anything even close to that happen to me before or since. You see things or you hear things or something happens that makes you go, that's kind of weird or whatever, and you can interpret it however you want. But, usually it's just your mind kind of fucking with you or whatever. But that specific occurrence was life-altering. I mean, it happened exactly the way that I explained it, and I just can't stress enough how just stressful and awful the whole thing was. And again, absolutely no reason why it should have occurred at all that I can find. Like I said, I kind of investigated and dug and Googled and tried to put some sort of a connection together as to why in the world that would have happened to me. And like I said in the story, the more I dug, the more confused I became, because it was just literally, absolutely, there was no reason I should know that girl, know anything about her, know anything about the story for that matter. So, yeah, anyway, very strange, but hey, it is what it is. And hopefully that made for a good story for you guys for Halloween. And next week we'll get back to regular car stuff. I'm down in California still at the time that I'm recording this. When I get back home, I'm going to start working on a couple of different stories for the site and a couple different things for the podcast as well. So, again, ironandsteel.com is the website. Feel free to head over there and check that story out. While you're there, hit subscribe and punch in your email, and then you'll be kept up to date on new content. We're doing a weekly podcast and most usually a fresh article every week. So I'm going to send you an email just to let you know when there is fresh content. But yeah, other than that, I guess we'll say our goodbyes for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed that story. And now I'm going to try to forget all about it. Thanks again, you guys, for being here. Happy Halloween. I'll talk to you again in 7 days.